Nick,
Yes?
do the intro.
No, I'm not doing the intro.
You don't want to do the intro?
No.
Come on. All right, this is our
Okay.
intro. Let's go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Infallible Files.
Woo.
Today we're talking about Rise of Skywalker.
Alright.
So,
Yeah.
let's see. Does anyone have any major points I'd like to start with? Any hot takes?
It was bad.
Yeah,
It was really bad.
It's a pretty hot take.
it
It's a
is.
pretty cold take.
And, Dylan, you thought the opposite of that, right? I mean, you didn't think it was amazing, but...
I mean, I didn't go into it with like very, very high expectations. I didn't go into it trying to find anything wrong with it, so I ended up actually.
Yeah, I feel that. I went into it thinking it was going to be terrible, and I left disappointed because it was worse than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I knew it was gonna be not great, so I just kind of went into it just like seeing it for what it was, which was the conclusion of Star Wars to some extent, just being entertained by it. I knew it wasn't going to be great, to be honest. I didn't like it that much, but it didn't really matter because I was just going there to be entertained.
Yeah, I agree with Andrew.
Yeah, I'd say I also thought the same thing as Andrew. Like, I had low expectations, and it was entertaining. It was definitely not a very good movie, but I wasn't like, it wasn't a bad experience. But, clearly Sam disagrees, so how about,
I missed The Last Jedi.
oh,
I
now
miss
that's
it.
a hot take.
That movie was actually entertaining.
Really, though?
Mike, you can disagree. You can disagree on whether it's the best Star Wars movie or whether it's the worst.
Oh
but
my
it was
God.
certainly entertaining. I was thinking about the plot and having a good time in the theater watching it. After leaving, I might not thought it was so good, but at the moment, it was a good experience, which I cannot
I don't-
say for Rise of Skywalker. I was bored.
kind
I
of
do
disagree.
think Last Jedi was much better.
I agree.
I didn't like Last Jedi too much, but I liked it a lot better.
It made choices.
You liked it better than Rise of Skywalker, Andrew?
Yeah, I think so.
Alright. Well,
I disagree with that. I didn't like a lot of the choices that they made during The Last Jedi, and for me, Sam was saying that like he had fun in the moment. I don't know. I wasn't really too excited in the moment, just because I
mean-
didn't like a lot of the stuff with Luke and Rey.
I had fun
for most of The Last Jedi, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like, it was that bad for me. Like the story choices they made, sure, they were ambitious, but that doesn't matter for me. It's not actually good.
Right, but in the Rise of the Skywalker, they didn't make choices, and I guess that's kind of a good point. Is that they didn't do anything.
Though. Like, isn't it
They
like
did.
a pretty big choice to bring Palpatine back? Like,
yeah.
Right, but
Hey,
that was the one thing
While
they
we're
did.
talking about bringing Palpatine back.
They also made Kylo.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but Kylo's sexy.
Okay,
All right.
I mean,
that's true.
I was entertained in the moment at both movies, but leaving The Last Jedi, I was just like, that was really bad and weird. And leaving Rise of Skywalker, I was just like, yeah, that was pretty much what I expected, you know? And I guess I had slightly higher expectations for Last Jedi, because I liked Force Awakens, and then I had lower expectations because I didn't like Last Jedi, and I knew it was like a different director, so it'd be all messed up. But like, I still definitely dislike The Last Jedi a lot more than I dislike The Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, I think I'm just going to address the elephant in the room here, which is that they brought back Palpatine. Like, what was that?
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking with that. It was weird.
It was, yeah, it was definitely out of nowhere. It's clear that if J.J. Abrams had directed The Last Jedi, it probably would have been a bit more justified. That doesn't mean it would have been justified, but he would have, I assume, led up to it, or, you know, hinted at it or something that made it less just totally out of nowhere.
Yeah, I agree. And I also hate how they removed Ryan Johnson's like whole track. They reverted and they completely 180'd on the whole Rey has unimportant parents thing.
Honestly, I didn't like Ryan Johnson's track, so
Right.
I probably would have done the same thing.
You didn't like it, but you can't just remove part of the story. You have to accept that that was part of it. And changing that
Yeah.
canon was just weird. And didn't make a lot of
Yeah.
sense to me.
The thing is, like, the movie, and this is the main reason I had low expectations, is because if they keep going down that track, I think it's just going to be not only not that good, but also unenjoyable. If they revert track, it's not going to be like, like good in like a critical or like even a technical sense, but it can at least be enjoyable for me personally.
That is fair.
Nick,
you guys have anything?
thoughts on Palpatine?
I'm not too sure about it. I didn't really dislike it, but I didn't really like it. I'm glad that they kind of got it out of the way in the beginning, though.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Like, at least they didn't try to spend a bunch of time setting it up. Like, probably would have happened if Last Jedi was different. I like how they just got it over with and let us just enjoy the plot.
Yeah, I agree. That was good. Yeah, that was better. Another big part of the movie that we should probably address is the whole Chewbacca thing, where he died and then he undied without really a good reason.
That was weird. I don't know. I mean, I still to this day have no idea how that worked, because maybe I did something, but he got on a ship. One ship.
True, there was definitely there was no second ship anywhere. I don't know what that was about.
Well, I mean, Dylan, there was a second ship, you just couldn't see it.
But true.
Come on. But yeah, that's like, a classic like Disney or just like big commercial movie move to like kill someone and then they're not actually dead for literally no good reason. But like, and it's usually not done well, but it definitely was not done well in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, there were at least 3 instances of this. I mean, Chewbacca was an egregious example of this, but I mean, Palpatine was sort of like a bigger example of that. I wasn't a huge fan. And then also C-3PO, they like deleted his memory.
Yeah.
The scene where he like sadly said goodbye to everyone he loved, and then they just use it for comic relief and bring him.
Yeah, and that was kind of dumb, but I did, to be honest, I did like the scene, where like he was like saying goodbye and like sacrificing himself. Like, that was a good scene, but where they took it from there was dumb.
Yeah.
And its overall purpose was pretty dumb, in my opinion.
And I mean, we don't have to go into too much detail on that. I'm just thinking, like, it's kind of ridiculous. There's so many.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So.
So Leia's purpose, in the movie, I mean, there were some interesting things to discuss here.
Yeah, she obviously had some important scenes, with Rey, especially, but like, I personally expected more from the character after the ridiculous like Force invention of her like flying through space and coming back to life in episode 8.
Yeah,
I thought that the whole Leia thing kind of being like Rey's mentor, I didn't really like that too much. I thought it was kind of random, and I don't really think that they needed all of those Leia scenes, because it didn't seem too... I don't know, I don't think it fit too well.
No, I mean, I think that, I mean, but because Carrie Fisher died a few years ago, I think that, like, if maybe they just, like, reduce Leia's role because of that, but I feel like it was kind of clear that they were maybe, like, recycling old footage maybe at some points. I don't really know. Maybe that's just what I saw, but I think that in the last movie, with that kind of ridiculous Force thing, I think that would have been kind of a good idea to somewhat like respect and off to Leia, rather than just like bring her back role.
Yeah, I think that would have been a fitting death for the character, and I don't remember it super well, so I'm not totally sure of this, but it just... the way she survived made no sense. It was like they just made up an entirely new power from the Force, and it was like the Chewbacca thing. It was just like a huge dead fake out.
Yeah, I
It
think
really
that's-
annoyed me.
I think just making up random powers from the Force is actually a pretty big issue within Rise of the Skywalker. Like, if we could just take a second to think about the Force healing, where they introduced this magical Force healing type of ability about 5 minutes before they needed it to save Kylo. It was kind of random and just like, what? It kind of took me out of the story a little bit.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Just me personally, I didn't mind it as much as the flying through space thing because it seemed less of a stretch from what the Force can already do.
Yeah,
And it kind of
because the idea of healing is like a little more central to the Force. You know what I mean? Like, or the idea of just
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
general. So that's why it made a little more sense to me. Like, that's more or less what the Force is in a sense, like a life force. So that's why I didn't have a problem with it.
Well, I would argue that if you can pull a lightsaber towards you and you can push away objects, then you could easily pull yourself towards something.
Yeah, but like to encase yourself and keep yourself from being like destroyed by outer space is kind of different.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. You could
Yeah.
also argue that builds into like the whole healing thing. You could just be permanently healing yourself as you pull yourself in a direction, therefore keeping yourself alive through space.
Yeah, you could argue that.
I just don't like
Yeah,
when
I
they
mean-
introduce new things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the healing thing with Kylo maybe made like a little bit of sense, just because it was there were two people who could use the Force very well, and I guess the Force is the healing Force. Did I like it a lot? No, not really, but I think it was at least a little bit plausible.
Plus,
think
it
the
was-
flying through space thing might have been plausible.
Plus, it was important for the characters, and like kind of tying this back to Leia's purpose, like the reason she survived, it seemed like in this movie, was so that she could be a mentor to Rey. And you know, they had the one scene where Rey was training to just kind of be like, look, she did train, it's not a plot hole.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know, honestly, I wouldn't have minded if it wasn't in the movie at all, because like one scene of her training compared to a whole like act of Empire Strikes Back where Luke is training, like I don't really care that much. Like, just say she was training before Leia died. Like, it just her purpose in this movie didn't make much sense to me, whereas the Force healing thing kind of served as like a moment between Rey and Kylo.
Personally, I could see what you're saying about how it. I could see what you're saying about that, but I didn't really like the Force healing between them, because I think personally, I kind of think Rey should have died, because I feel like it would have brought balance to the Force, and Kylo would have been alive, but he would have been good and not bad anymore, and I think that would have been a better decision.
Yeah, can we just acknowledge how there's no balance in the Force at the moment?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like, I agree with Nick. I think it would have made a lot of sense instead of like the light side survives in the end. It would have made a lot more sense. Rey dies, and Kylo, he's not like suddenly a Jedi, but
He's an angsty
he's
boy.
clearly not all bad anymore. He's just the balance, which is kind of the whole point.
Yeah, he's a conflicted angsty boy.
And that would have been a cool way to end it, because like obviously the original trilogy ended with the light side winning, but they always talk about how like the purpose is to bring balance to the Force. That would have been a cool way to like, you know, have a good ending but make it different from the original trilogy and kind of a complete ending to the whole saga in general, as
I
opposed
agree
to
with
just
that.
like wrapping up the
I mean,
movie.
I think you make a really good point about like balance to the Force. Like I think in these past few movies, I mean, people have been talking about how like the Force has been used in ways that it hasn't been used before. But I think the bigger thing was that like it was almost being used kind of recklessly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I think great things can be done with the Force in the Star Wars universe, but yeah, again, it just comes back to there being like a balanced Force.
Yeah, and it seems like they prioritized like using Force powers to further the plot over like seeing what would actually make sense with, you know, the concept of the Force.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, I don't know if you guys have seen The Mandalorian, but
Yoda.
Baby Yoda does Force heal in The Mandalorian, which came out before The Rise of Skywalker. So
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you were right with.
And to be clear, I'm not a fan of the force healing thing either. It didn't really annoy me, but like it wasn't like a cool addition to the movie in my opinion or anything.
Yeah, I was just thinking of it more from the technical side, and it just kind of threw me out because I was thinking about how they introduced this like force healing, like, oh, when they're gonna use that, and then it was like 5 minutes later, like literally 5 minutes later, and they used it. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad they set this up properly.
I feel like it wasn't literally 5 minutes later. It was like a decent bit further in the movie because she first uses it on like in the tunnel, and it took a little bit for them to.
No, I think it was
crash
before
on
the
that
tunnels,
planet.
no?
Wait, no, the first time she uses it is in the tunnel on that monster thing, and then she uses it in Kylo like 20 minutes or more later. Like I thought it was a decent setup. Like there was some time there to make it feel reasonable.
Maybe you're right. It's been a little while since I've seen it. I just remember being in the theater and being pretty mind blown and frustrated by that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. So next big thing we should talk about, Rey and Kylo. The turn their relationship took, and the event at the end. I heard that you were a fan of that, Sam.
I'm a big fan of that relationship, you know? It would have been amazing if they completely went with the side switch, and they made Rey evil, and then they had that bomb relationship. But I'm a pretty big ship, mainly because Adam Driver is really sexy. And
yeah, that was... Of all the things, of all the like crazy additions Rian Johnson made in 8, developing Rey and Kylo's relationship was by far my favorite. Like that was one thing I liked about The Last Jedi a lot. And I don't know how I felt about the kiss because it could have just as easily have been like a brother-sister type relationship or just like a friends type relationship. And I honestly don't know which I would have preferred. Like the kiss didn't necessarily it didn't feel necessary to me, but I didn't mind it. It was just kind of there as part of like a good development of the relationship, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I very much enjoyed that moment. That was one of my 2 favorite moments in the whole movie.
Oh, what was the other one?
Enjoyed. It's maybe a couple minutes after that kiss, and Rey slides down the sand.
Oh.
That was my other favorite moment in the movie, and those were the only 2 moments I enjoyed in the whole movie. I felt it was like a really good, like, relatable human moment. Do you guys have thoughts, Nick, Dylan?
Best part of the movie. I mean, we all agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Right, Nick?
I'm kind of wondering now.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Could we go to like Indiana Dunes or something and just like sled down the?
I'm in.
Ooh, recreate the iconic scene from Rise of Skywalker.
No, like is that something you can do? That would be.
Yeah, maybe that's a screen cap.
Year round.
Yeah, I think it is. I think I've heard about people sledding like on the dunes.
Yeah.
Nick and Dylan, do either of you guys have stuff to add about Rey and Kylo's relationship?
I actually thought that the writing and acting made it pretty well deserved in this movie. It was a little sketchy for me in like the last 2, I'd say. But I'd say the way that it worked, I'd say like the kiss and everything and like their weird relationship it actually worked in my opinion.
In my opinion, I really liked it throughout the movie, and I thought it was really well done. I liked a lot of their connections and how they were talking through the Force and stuff. But personally, I thought the kiss was kind of weird, and I don't really know if I liked it too much.
I honestly, if I had to choose one like factor of the movie, not just one scene, because the sledding scene is the best part, but like one thing about the movie that I liked the most, I'd say it would probably be like the scenes that had Rey and Kylo.
I agree. That was like the only redeeming part for me.
The water fight, though. The water fight was awesome.
I got some major Star Wars free flashbacks.
Oh, really? In a good way or a bad way?
In a Star Wars free type of way.
That scene was good. I mean, that scene was cool, I'll say, in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
It was cool.
I think it was well shot in Rise of the Skywalker as well.
Yeah, I love J.J. Abrams just as a director, just in terms of, like, not in terms of his story choices always, but just in terms of his directing.
Yeah, I like his shots. I think his shots and his lens flare is actually pretty cool. But
yeah.
Again, maybe not the best writer. Lost. Star Wars.
I haven't seen Lost, but yeah.
Question: was Abrams the one who wrote Episode 9?
He and Chris something.
He took it over.
He was one of the two.
From Chris. So Chris wrote a script, and then Abrams took it over and changed it and made a 3-hour movie, which was destroyed by the studio. Is what it's going around. That's what people are talking about. Is that the studio took a massive, like, probably half of the movie out. So that might be why it's kind of
Which, I mean,
worse.
I think after seeing the movie, I tell that some cut, right?
Yeah, you could tell there were some. I mean, the movie was like so much happened, and there were so many like things that just happened quickly without any like build up or explanation. It moved very fast.
Yeah, so who do we blame for this movie having its failures? Do we blame the studio, or do we blame Abrams? Do we
I think
blame the original?
At least in terms of like the story and the pacing, I think that's just kind of what happens because Rian Johnson took the whole story in a completely different direction with 8, and then obviously Abrams kind of tried to walk it back to what he had in mind. So like, and neither of them did a bad job of what they were trying to do necessarily. But that's just kind of what happens is you get this like weird plot that doesn't really it doesn't follow like a certain direction, and there's stuff that seems like it's missing and stuff like that.
Yeah, you don't see this type of stuff often in other movies, or like it's hard to it's hard to judge it or blame, which I don't think necessarily need to anyways, because weird things happened. Like a new director came in, and then they switched back, and there was super polarizing movies. I feel like there's just it's so hard to figure out what exactly. So many little things that just kind of spiraled out of control.
Yeah, like you're not gonna see like if there's one like main like director and writer of a trilogy, you're not gonna have like Snoke be a major character in the first movie, then in the second movie he dies suddenly, and then in the third movie there's just a whole new villain,
So was this movie doomed from the start?
Yeah.
Yeah, to an extent.
Honestly, yeah.
I agree. To a certain extent, it was doomed. I think that they had a chance to redeem it a little bit by making it good, but overall, re-entering a new villain, I think that kind of set it up with a little bit of failure.
I mean, like, Star Wars kind of needs that type of character. Like, there's the, like, volatile, impressionable Sith who's, like, the warrior, and then there's the mastermind in the background, and it was interesting to have, like, a new character filling that role, because in the originals and the prequels, it was Palpatine. But then, once Snoke was dead, he kind of just was like, well, who should I use? I guess I'll just use Palpatine.
I agree.
True.
I agree that they had to have a Palpatine-type character, but I don't know if it should have been Palpatine exactly, and I don't know if they... I'm not really sure what they should have done, but I don't think that having Palpatine back was the greatest move.
They honestly
I mean,
couldn't have killed Snoke and had Snoke play Palpatine's role in Episode 9. Like,
Well, I feel like that's
Yeah.
almost boring.
I was gonna say, like, from J.J. Abrams' point of view, having Snoke dead, I think it's better to have Palpatine, even though that's flawed, than to, like, create an entirely new third character to fill that role.
Well, what
You know?
I think what Rian Johnson was trying to do, and what they could have done, and if Abrams was a little more creative, if they could have had Rey be that role and set the whole like Rey's evil, force balance in the Force with Ben and Kylo being almost like fulfilling the light side role, and then see how that dynamic plays out. I think that would have made a really interesting movie and a good change of pace.
So you think Rey would have turned to the dark side, and Kylo would have...
Have some like traumatic accident happen to all of like the side characters, and see if she would turn then, and see what happens then, or you have her go to the dark side to try to figure out how to like revive people from the dead, like they did in the Clone Wars and in 1 through 3.
That would be really interesting, but I feel like we just kind of need to accept that no matter what happened in this movie, I feel like Rey was never going to go to the dark side.
Yeah, I
Rian
think...
Johnson would have done it.
Would it have been really cool? I think so, but like, I mean, it's Disney.
It definitely would have been cool, and it definitely would have been interesting, and it could have been good, but it would not have felt like a Star Wars trilogy. It wouldn't have felt like part of the saga. Like that kind of stuff in Clone Wars is really cool, and I like that it's part of Star Wars, but it does not feel like what at least I want the main Star Wars movies to feel like. And that's just an opinion thing.
Yeah. I do agree that, I think it would be kind of hard to end Star Wars like that. Would I be opposed to it? Not necessarily, but I think probably like not how they would want the Skywalker trilogy.
Yeah, I just would like a good movie to close off the trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I see what you guys are saying.
I don't know whether I would have rather had them prioritize like being Star Warsy or just making a good movie. They clearly prioritize being Star Warsy. I don't know whether I would have liked it better the other way. But so one thing we should talk about, I think, is critical reception of the movie, because according to Rotten Tomatoes, this was the worst one.
According to me, it's the worst one. I agree.
Yeah.
With that. I think
We're-
the critical.
On
Worse
Rotten
than-
Tomatoes, because I'm not sure. Is it considered the worst Star Wars movie or just the worst out of this trilogy?
The worst Star Wars movie.
Worst
It's
Star Wars movie ever.
You know,
Oh, well.
Tomatoes.
I would
actually
agree.
now it's tied with Phantom Menace. They both have a
Okay.
53. Oh no, never mind. Rise of Skywalker is a 52.
I feel like it's debatable. Definitely debatable if it's the worst out of this trilogy. But like, I think it's definitely not the worst out of all the Star Wars movies. If you take like Attack of the Clones, like that's definitely worse than this.
Attack of the
I disagree.
Clones was
Oh, go on. I didn't mean to cut you off.
no. Sorry, I won't.
Oh, well, I feel like
Go ahead.
technically this movie was not the worst if you look at it from like a critical and technical point of view, but if you look at it from like an entertainment point of view, you can laugh at and mock and have fun watching Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace. I was just sitting there just kind of like bored during Rise of Skywalker. I think that makes it so much worse. But that's my opinion, of course.
Yeah, I
But
was.
if we're talking about which movie is critically better, I still think that Episode 9 is better than The Phantom Menace, just because, I don't know, The Phantom Menace was more boring to me.
Mhm.
If I'm
Yeah.
not, like, watching it as
With
a
the
joke.
memes.
Yeah,
watching
and
watching something just to make fun of it, like, and having fun doing that, probably means that it's even worse than a movie that you just kept.
Yeah, that would not boost my like critical
That's-
opinion of something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that I think critically and technically, Rise of Skywalker is well shot. It was much better acted. It was even much better written. But
Yeah.
it was just at a point where it was not bad enough to mock, and it was not good enough to enjoy. And I feel like the original, the second trilogy, the 1 through 3, was so bad that you could at least mock it and have fun with it, and not good enough, and it was just terrible.
Yeah, I think the difference there is just for me. I enjoyed this one. Like, it wasn't that great, but it was entertaining to watch. And clearly for you, Sam, it wasn't very entertaining. So
Yeah, I think the actual critical and like fan reception are quite different for this movie.
yeah.
But I don't.
Now, and this kind of aligns with what Sam's saying, but Star Wars: The Last Jedi has a 91 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is better than it's better than Return of the Jedi. It's better than Rogue One. It's better than all of them except for the first two originals and The Force Awakens
I mean,
on
I
Rotten
think
Tomatoes.
that the rating for Last Jedi is way too overblown. I mean, no matter what you think of Rise of Skywalker, I think that that's way too big of a difference in them.
Yeah, I agree. I think
I don't think that Rise of Skywalker was either that much worse or Last Jedi was that much. That's a huge difference, and
I think Force Awakens has a 93, which I think is too high. Last Jedi has a 91, which I think is way too high. Rise of Skywalker has a 52, which I think is too low. Rogue One has an 83, which I think is too low. Like, that's...
I really
Rogue One is
enjoyed
my-
Rogue One.
I
Yeah,
think
Rogue
it's
One...
noteworthy to also check the IMDb ratings because they're a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now.
I just bring up Rotten Tomatoes because, like, this is just, like, purely critics rating it.
I use Metascore for critic ratings. I just find that to be a little more.
I'll
accurate.
check that right now.
Since Rotten Tomatoes is kind of, it gives a yes or a no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Uh,
I mean, IMDb is good for a lot of people and like the public opinion. And Rise of Skywalker has 6.9 IMDb.
okay.
Well, similarly to Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic gives Rise of Skywalker a 54.
Yeah.
Do you guys? What does IMDb and Metacritic give The Last Jedi? Because I don't think Rise of Skywalker was worse than The Last Jedi.
Well, I feel like the critic reception of Last Jedi was a lot better than Rise of Skywalker, but the actual fan perception was worse.
Yeah, that's definitely
So-
true. Last Jedi got an 85 on Metacritic.
But maybe I'm wrong, because Last Jedi scored 0.1 higher than Rise of Skywalker with a 7 instead of a 6.9.
Yeah, I mean, Rise of Skywalker did get a bad fan reception. Last Jedi got a very mixed one,
Yeah.
but I think there were enough people out there giving it like 9s and 10s compared to people who didn't like it very much, just giving it like 6s
Yeah, I feel like
and 5s.
if you were to look at the amount of people that gave Last Jedi a 10 and the amount that gave it a 1, it'd be very polarized and very split. Well, I think Rise of Skywalker would more be in between, in like the 4
Yeah.
to 7, 4 to 8 range.
Yeah, that's yeah.
But again, I have no data to back that up. I'm just kind of BSing this.
So, what do you guys think? So, Sam thinks that Walker's Star Wars movie. What do the rest of you guys think are the worst?
Phantom Menace for me, or Attack of Clones. It could go either way.
For me,
just
I
thought
think I think
ahead.
Phantom Menace is the worst, but I think that Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and The Last Jedi are all worse than Rise of Skywalker.
I agree. For me, Revenge of the Sith is also worse than Rise of Skywalker. It's close, but for me, yeah, that too.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I honestly just did not enjoy watching Rise of Skywalker that much, but Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, it's been a little while since I've seen them, but they were just really boring for me. I mean, Phantom Menace might have been a little better, but Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace, it just was kind of boring.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I also agree with that. Yeah, I think that Rise of Skywalker was better than both of those.
Now, Sam, remind me what your opinions on the prequels are, because I can't remember.
The prequels, I think they are terrible, garbage movies, but I think they are so bad that they're almost amazing. Almost in like a type of The Room type of sense. Like, I enjoy rewatching them.
For me personally, I agree that they're not the best movies. I think the acting in it is not the best. I think the writing is not very good. But with the overall story, I didn't think that it was the worst thing ever. I like a lot of... I don't think Revenge of the Sith is necessarily a good movie, but I still liked the story in it.
No.
Sam, could you remind me also, I remember when you first saw Force Awakens, I think you said you thought it was the best Star Wars movie.
That's because I was
From all-
hyped and I enjoyed watching it. My initial reactions were very positive because I actually really enjoyed seeing the characters and the theater atmosphere is really nice because I saw it. I think I saw the pre-release, so everyone in the theater was very hyped.
Yeah. Okay.
That kind of boosted my thing, but after like a week, I'm like, wait a second. And then I saw it
Yeah,
a
I
couple
think-
more times. I'm like, huh.
I think if there's one thing J.J. Abrams did well with the sequels that he directed, it was making really enjoyable movies, especially with 7.
I know we all have mixed opinions for this because personally, I'm not too... I mean, I think that The Force Awakens was enjoyable to watch, and I think that it was the best out of the sequel trilogy, but personally, I didn't think that it was that great of a movie, and I think we're kind of split on that.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't amazing, but I liked it a lot. It was, especially directorially, like, in my opinion, that's one of the best directed movies I've seen. There were just a bunch of little scenes and shots that stood out to me as really well directed. Story-wise, it definitely could have been better. I liked the characters a lot. I liked the writing in 7. I think the acting was good throughout all 3 sequels. Dylan, what's your like, what do you think are the worst ones? Like, what's the point where it goes from like good movie to bad movie in like your rankings of the movies? Would you say?
I'd say, except for 8, they're all good movies. I still think they're all well made, even the well, maybe not Attack. I think that's even worse than Phantom Menace. But I think that even the prequels were creative, and I still enjoyed a lot of like the costume design and stuff like that. You know, like little things, and also the story, which is a big thing. So I'm still able to sit down and enjoy watching.
You like the
In
dialogue?
terms of like actual bad movies, I'd say definitely Last Jedi, because I didn't really enjoy anything about that. And Attack of the Clones is almost really bad because it's just too many problems.
I completely agree with that because for the prequels, I liked the story, the overall story in them. I think that they made some bad decisions and some bad choices with, like, obviously I didn't like midi-chlorians and stuff like that, but I still liked the overall story, and the scenery was really good. I think that they did some things right that make it not a terrible movie, but for The Last Jedi, I just didn't really enjoy it.
For the prequels, for the story specifically, there were some good parts, there were some bad parts. The story was decent overall, but just the writing was so atrocious, in my opinion. Sorry. And the acting did nothing to fix that, although it probably wasn't.
I really don't
It
think
probably
the
couldn't
writing.
have been saved.
I don't think the writing in Last Jedi was that bad.
Not The Last Jedi, the prequels.
Oh.
Sorry.
I thought
The
that
prequels.
was
Yeah, the prequels 1 and 2 I think are absolutely bad movies. 3 I think is a bad movie, but I definitely get why people don't.
No.
Same with 8.
Sam, why do you exactly dislike 3 that much? Because I don't think that it's a great movie, but I still enjoy it and I still like the story. So why do you dislike it?
Because I actually don't hate 3 as much. I just like to quote the great ending "no" in it. I feel like it's one of the greatest gifts to humanity. I don't know. This just kind of wasn't really my thing. It was kind of interesting as a kid to like see the kind of the concepts, but
Yeah, I think everyone liked the prequels as a kid.
Yeah, I did. But yeah,
They were definitely kids' movies, even though Revenge of the Sith was supposed to be like all dark and stuff. It's definitely kids' movies.
I was kind of curious about. So I was just kind of waiting to see why it was really called The Rise of Skywalker, because I did by the title. And, so I was thinking we should talk about kind of the end of the movie. Well, right after extensively discuss the sand sledding, the Rise of Skywalker moment. That was interesting. I didn't like it or dislike it. But
I liked it. I don't really have like any thorough reasoning for that or anything. I thought it was good. I thought it was earned, but you know.
I'm actually a big fan of it because I agree that it was earned. First of all, it was a little bit cheesy, sure, but that's kind of a lot of what Star Wars is. And I thought it was a good job of kind of tying these movies back in with like bring up the Skywalker up to the.
Yeah, I mean it is the Skywalker saga, so.
I agree that. I also agree that they did it well because a lot of people were wondering during The Last Jedi and stuff, like, who is Rey? What does she come from? There were a lot of theories about that. And then when we find out that she's the granddaughter of Palpatine, there's all that, and she is not proud of that. But then at the end, when she kind of calls herself a Skywalker, I think that was deserved, and I think that was good.
Yeah, like it's the last scene in like Star Wars, so like it's fine that it's cheesy, obviously, and it was just a satisfying ending. It wasn't amazing, but it was satisfying.
It was fine.
Yeah, that's. I'd say that's a win coming from Sam on this movie.
I guess when I watched it when I watched it, I guess I was just kind of lost in the cheesy of the moment. But I've kind of come to like it a little bit. I think it kind of shows maybe like the question of who Rey is like wasn't as important
Yeah,
as to be, I guess.
I do like that message.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think overall, J.J. Abrams, just in terms of Star Wars and like the story of the whole, like I think he did a good job of wrapping up the trilogy while at the same time wrapping up the whole saga. As good as he could have in this situation.
Yeah, I feel like it was a very Abrams-esque movie. I don't know if you guys have seen the Star Trek films that he directed.
I love those.
I enjoy those. I think it has some of the same issues as those two movies, but I do think they're at least like semi-interesting, and like the kind of the like writing style is very similar.
That's definitely true. Just in terms of like entertainment value, those are like two of my favorite movies, honestly.
What grade would you guys give this whole trilogy? Was it a success? Probably.
The trilogy, that's a good question.
C.
I'd say it was perfectly average. Yes, a C.
Personally, I'd say D, just because, I mean, the first... For The Last Jedi, I think that kind of brought it down for me. I didn't really like it. The Rise of Skywalker, it didn't redeem it as much as it should have. And The Force Awakens, I still like as a movie. So I thought that was good. Overall, The Force Awakens, I give a higher grade. But I think that The Last Jedi pulled it down a lot. And I think that The Rise of Skywalker kind of was in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, you guys already know how I feel about this. I'm in the reverse party of Nick here. I think Force Awakens was a solid C for me. I think, Rise of Skywalker is probably like a D or D minus, but I actually think Last Jedi was more on the B tier for me. So that kind of averages it out around like a C.
For me,
Yeah, I mean,
I'd give Force Awakens. I'm probably out of the people here, I'm probably the highest on Force Awakens. I give that like a B plus, honestly. Then The Last Jedi was like a D minus, and then Rise of Skywalker, like a C, in my opinion.
I mean, honestly, I've sort of come to like Force Awakens. Last Jedi, I didn't hate it as much as some of you guys did. Rise of Skywalker, I just like. Overall, I think okay. So I might give it like the whole trilogy. I might say B minus overall.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the critical reception of the first two ensures that it'll at least be thought of better than the prequels. Plus, just
Yeah.
the whole, like, the prequels are such like a cult, like, such a thing to hate on in popular culture that like it would be very hard for these to be like perceived as worse than the prequels, just by like society as a whole. So I'd say one last thing before we head out. What have you guys heard about future plans? Obviously this was the end of the Skywalker saga, but what have you heard about like future plans Disney has for Star Wars?
I have not heard anything, to be honest, but I'm kind of excited for it. It seems, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a few articles, which is why I wrote that down. I saw a few articles that were talking about, I don't remember who said it, but someone who was part of these movies said that they planned, that there were plans in the works for the next trilogy to take place, like, way further in the past, like, way before even the like, toward the start of the Jedi Order, because I think their reasoning was that they could kind of start fresh there, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
It could be its own thing.
I think that'd be really interesting to see, but
Yeah.
what I really want to see is the extended universe, especially like the books, because those were like actually amazing. I don't know if you guys read all the books or not, but some of the Star Wars extended universe books were like had really intricate and good plots.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. There's so many of those, so I haven't really read many of them, or any of them, honestly. But there's so many people who've worked on that, so I'm sure there's some really good stuff in there.
It's amazing.
Another thing, Disney Plus is bringing back Star Wars: The Clone Wars for one more season.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the best
I am
thing in
not-
the whole universe.
I don't know if I'm excited for that because Star Wars: The Clone Wars, it had a really good 5 seasons, and the ending of season 5, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's the thing where... Wait, do you care if I spoil it for you guys if you haven't seen it?
No, go ahead.
I don't really.
It's Ahsoka is like being hunted. It's like a whole plot line, and then at the end she like gives up on being a Padawan.
Yeah.
And she leaves, and it's honestly really sad. And I thought that was a really good ending, but then Netflix brought it back for season 6, which was like okay, but not as good as the show had been. And I'm worried that that's what's going to happen with Disney Plus too.
Did you know that in Rebels? I mean, do you guys care about spoilers for this too?
I've not
No.
seen Rebels. I heard Ahsoka's in it though, right?
Yeah, she dies.
Wait, what?
Oh wow.
Wait, what?
I mean, I asked about spoilers, so I'm sorry if that was something you cared about.
I wasn't gonna watch
But-
Rebels, but
So yeah, this isn't really on
It's
topic to
kinda
this whole
interesting.
Rise of Skywalker thing, but it's actually a really, really good like scene and moment, and she's in that series, but not as like main character until towards the end.
they
And
killed
then-
off Ahsoka.
No, but they did it in a really good way. You'll have to watch. That's not the point.
Okay, I watched the episode.
One thing I was gonna bring up actually is Star Wars Rebels is supposed to be really good. It it actually has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and
If you're a 9-year-old, yeah, it's really good.
I've had a few people come to me now, like multiple people come to me and say, like I assumed it would be like just good for kids, but it's actually like really good. Is what
I
I've
don't know,
heard.
man. I don't know, man. I've watched it and it's
You've
really,
watched it?
Really, it's really childish. Like really.
I mean, I
childish.
haven't watched it. So.
I've seen the first season, maybe a little more, and I heard it got off to a really bad start, and I thought the beginning of it was really awful, but it might have gotten better. I've heard good things about it in the later seasons. I don't know what.
Yeah, I'm
we're on
pretty
right
sure it
now.
got better too. But
Yeah.
Would it be
No, go
bad
ahead.
to just watch like the good episodes of it? Should I watch?
I mean, the way Clone Wars worked was it was just kind of like clusters of 3 or 4 episodes would be one plot line, then they would move on.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't know if this show works the same way, but yeah, I might watch Rebels.
I might watch it just for Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Because that is probably one of the best characters in the whole Star Wars franchise.
Yeah, she's pretty good. And Darth Vader's in it, right?
That's what I've heard.
All right.
So, should we try to wrap this up, or is there still?
Does
stuff
anyone
we wanna
else-
discuss?
Have something they want to talk about before we finish up
Any
here?
Hot takes, cold take.
I missed The Last Jedi.
Well,
I like Ryan Johnson. I like Knives Out.
I do want to see Knives Out. I mean Ryan Johnson is good. I just didn't like what he did with Star Wars.
I mean, have you guys seen Chris Evans in a sweatshirt? It's quite beautiful.
I have. Yes.
Yeah. That's all I wanted to add.
All right.
Cool.
Well,
All right.
Nick,
you know,
Dylan,
honestly,
anything?
the whole movie is just a ripoff of.
Dylan, that's not going in the actual podcast.
What are you guys laughing about?
Smash like, smash subscribe, rate our podcast 5 stars out of 5.
Click on the link now.
Donate
You will
us
not be disappointed.
your money.
Click the link before podcast
Link
ends.
all the
Super
links
on
in the
topic.
description. Click every single one of them. Click the suggested video. And then go
Look at my
away.
face.